Would you jump into a pond and save a child from drowning if it meant ruining your $200 shoes? Let's be more explicit with this idea. Let's say there's a pond that you walk by every day to get to work. In fact, you've gone into this pond several times before and you know that it is so shallow that you can easily walk through it, and its deepest point, it goes up to your chin. For you, this pond has no intrinsic danger because you simply can't drown in it purely due to your height. Now let's say one day you're on your way to work and you're wearing a really slick suit because you're about to meet with the CEO of the company. And on this day, as you were walking by the pond, you see a little girl drowning and screaming for help. It's 100% apparent that if you do nothing, this girl will die. But you're wearing your super nice shoes, which will be ruined if you jump in the water and you don't have enough time to take them off. So you're stuck with this choice of, if you want to save the child's life, you must ruin your $200 shoes. Is it worth it to lose $200 to save this little girl's life? Your answer is yes. I don't know you, I don't know who you are, but I'd bet your answer is yes, and it makes total sense. And just to make this thought experiment more clear, what if you got to work one day and you meet your buddy and he says, I was walking by the pond and I saw a child drowning and I wanted to save their life, but I didn't because I'd ruined my $200 shoes. You'd think that guy was a psychopath. You'd think there is something seriously wrong with that guy's morality, and it's not something we need to think about deeply. We just have this gut feeling which tells us there's something seriously wrong with an individual that can, at a cost of only $200, save a dying life, and chooses not to. But the fact is, we do something quite similar to what that psychopath coworker does every day. If you live in an affluent country like America or South Korea, and you're middle class or richer, the amount of money you have compared to how much money people dying in developing countries have is tens or hundreds of times greater than them. Thus, if you gave just a little money to a charity, you could save the life of someone in the poorer parts of the world, but we don't, or at least I suspect a great many of us don't. You're willing to lose $200 in the form of fancy dress shoes to save a child's life when they're drowning in a pond in front of you. And you think anyone who wouldn't do that is an amoral monster, but when the same situation is presented to you, as far as losing $200 to save a child with no water in the Sudan, we don't feel any moral problem with that lost life. And this is the whole question of this thought experiment. Why is it that we feel an immense moral obligation to help people right in front of us and almost no moral obligation to those far away? Is the life of the child drowning in front of you more valuable than that of a child dying on another continent? I'm willing to bet your answer is no, because generally speaking, I think most people think human lives are valuable no matter where you're born or what your race or nationality is. But as this thought experiment shows us, this is not what our actions bear out. The real reason that we behave this way is that we have an evolutionary response which is totally mismatched from the modern world we live in. There are so many cases where our evolutionary response runs contrary to modern life. For example, our diet. Before modern life, it was hard to get fat and sugar, and thus our bodies have given us this incredible desire to eat those things, despite the fact that now that we can eat them so easily and freely, they are causing huge negative effects on our health. Evolutionarily speaking, psychologically, we put a great emphasis on people who are closer to us, both in physical distance and in relationship, because that's who we needed to survive. Before towns and cities were of any size, we had to watch out for our family more than anyone else because they were the people that would help us the most and spread our genes. After them would be other humans we had a close relationship with, like friends, and then after that, people who were maybe in our locality that we knew who helped us in other ways, and so on. I'm sure this was absolutely key to our survival as humans 20 or 30,000 years ago, but now it's forcing us to confront a moral problem that we have. In modern times, we don't depend on our families and friends for survival nearly as much as we did in prehistoric times, and we've never had such a disparity in human wealth that was so easily transferable. Even as recently as 300 years ago, if you were a middle-class person living in France and had extra money to spare, there was really no efficient way of sending $200, or the equivalent in France at the time period, to a poor person in Bangladesh, even if that amount would save their life. The thing we're getting at here is that we're facing a new moral problem that has just arisen in the last 100 years or so. And even if we don't directly act by donating more money to charities that help those people in developing worlds, it's something worth thinking about. And it is something that our psychology is made to help us ignore and not think about. We are made to consume as much sugar and saturated fat and cholesterol as possible. And even if you are consuming too much, it doesn't mean you're an evil person. But it does mean you should be concerned and try to minimize your intake of those unhealthy foods. And in the exact same way, even if you don't give any money to charity or feel like you aren't giving enough, I'm not trying to tell you you're as big a monster as a person who casually walks by a drowning child. But it would probably be a good idea if you realize that maybe what you should do is give some amount to charity, especially if it is an amount that really doesn't cause any harm to you, that could really help someone in a less prosperous country.